restless.
Kevin, are you ready for us? Yeah, okay. Good evening. This is the Guilford Board of Education. It is Monday, January 8th. I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Happy New Year to everybody. We're going to start here with action on the minutes from the December 11th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections?
Just the first line. It's just Mrs. Rader and not Mr. Rader.
Oh.
Silly thing. But
Very first page, first word.
it's all
I'm
good.
sorry that I missed that.
Yeah, that was all.
So the only thing, and I know we're going to talk about the calendar, do we want to make a correction in these minutes to reflect the new
The
calendar
notes about the
end
calendar.
date?
Yeah.
I think we probably need to make it in these.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
probably need it, right, because that was the document in
the
front of you on that
documented,
date,
yeah.
so I think we need to draw everyone's attention to the
question,
corrections, and
yeah.
that is a good question.
Anything else about December 11th meeting minutes? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye, please. All right, I'm gonna, any in opposition? And then I'm gonna need to abstain. I was not
Comments should be good.
here on December 11th, so. All right. Public comments for topics on the agenda. We actually don't have any of the public here tonight. Review and approval of expenditures for the month of December. Dr. Hirsch.
Yes. The expenditures for the month were $6,128,757.98. That represented about 45.9% of the budget, which is almost the equivalent of 46% that we spent last year at the same time. So there's no difference. It's a pretty straightforward budget this time with very little differences. Under purchase services, the budget was a little bit higher than last year, but that's because of the timing in which bills came in. Similarly, on transportation, we're showing lower costs, but that's because we didn't get a bill for December. So that will make up next year. The warrant, that is the listing of bills that we're paying this month for December, is $3,018,782.63. And in that, there is nothing particularly that is anomalous, and so I leave it to others to ask questions.
We did review this in the Operations Committee meeting just prior, but does anybody have questions or comments? All right, so is there a motion to approve the expenditures for the month of December 2023?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's everybody. Thank you. Communications, does anybody have communications to share with the rest of the board? Any received? All right, I know we received a number prior to the last meeting on the calendar, but go ahead, Mr. Scott.
It was just one constituent who reached out to me, and I know that this was a much belabored topic several years back
Right.
about school start times. So
There has been some interest expressed in some consideration of that by a couple folks. Okay.
Great.
Others? All right. Student reps, welcome back. You're on.
So I'll start with Guilford Lakes. A group of PTO parents are collecting family favorite recipes to create a Guilford Lakes cookbook. So I assume that will be distributed out to students or online or somewhere where people can look at those. Recently, I think it was before break, they had a toy drive where they accumulated 603 new toys and books to donate to the police department. And because the 4th grade class donated the most, they earned a free pizza party. So I think one local, I think it was a local restaurant donated pizza. The PTO also organized an annual hot cocoa, coffee, and tea bar for teachers. The school store had their grand opening, which students were very, very, very excited about. And just before break, the kids did lots of arts and crafts. So I got to look at some pictures of some snowmen, gingerbread houses. I can't remember some of the other ones, but a whole bunch of arts and crafts. And then at Cox, teachers and students are currently engaging in like mid-year assessment sort of stuff. And later this month, teachers are going to be sharing updates on students' academic and social emotional progress with parents and guardians. And the focus of this month is compassion, so they are discussing how they try to spread kindness and compassion, and how they try to maintain a positive and safe climate for everyone at Cox.
Adding on with Calvin Leet students held a winter sing-along led by the music teacher, Mr. Nicholas Abraham. Students have been learning about different holiday traditions in their regular classrooms and in music classes. They're enjoying learning about the beliefs and traditions of their classmates, and they enjoy when their own family stories are shared as well. At the winter sing-along, students sang songs from many cultures, including Christmas, Hanukkah, Chinese New Year, Oshigatsu, Panchaganapati, Kwanzaa, and Ramadan. The Lost and Found at Calvin Leet has morphed into the Museum of Lost Items. The Leet staff hopes that making items more visible will help students find lost items. And it seems to be working so far. So, it will also help to add children's names to expensive clothing, like winter coats, so that if those valuable items get lost, they can quickly be returned. And second graders have been learning about the work of historians by studying the history of Calvin Leet School. Students have been examining a wide range of documents, including photographs, school photo albums, newspaper articles, building plans, and letters to learn about their school's history. Moving on to Adams. Adams did a secret staff spirit week in December. So students caught on quickly, and they were awarded prizes for the ones that guessed each day correctly at the end of the week. There was an all-school spirit week the week before break, sponsored by the Student Council at Adams. And the Student Council has also been meeting to come up with fun ideas to fundraise for community organizations and boost school spirit in the winter and spring. Adams extracurriculars are also going well, with the drama club holding auditions for the spring play currently. And the winter sports are up and running, and the student athletes are having a great time playing. About musical performances there, the 8th grade loved the performance recently from the GHS Voices. The PTO hosted a Cocoa Cafe for Adams staff before the break, and they got to experience some live music there as well. And there are more winter concerts coming up. The 7th and 8th grade chorus sing on the 10th, the 7th grade band and orchestra play on the 17th, and select and honors ensembles are playing on the 25th.
From Melissa Jones Elementary School, MSJ had its annual Scholastic Book Fair. It was a great event and it was well received. They want to give a special thanks to the MSJ PTO for doing such a great job decorating and organizing for their students. And for principal changes, Michelle Hahn has been resigned from GPS effective 12/31/2023. Mike Regan has agreed to become interim principal for the remainder of the school year. A thorough search is being conducted for a new principal, and the staff and faculty at MSJ thank Miss Han for her excellent service these past years. They look forward to working with Mr. Regan to make a smooth transition in leadership. And lastly, for MSJ, special assemblies. Their school held 2 special assemblies in the week leading up to the holiday break to bring their students and staff. On 12/20, they welcomed the GHS Voices Choir to perform a concert of holiday classics for the student body. And then on 12/23, all grade levels gathered in the gymnasium for a school-wide holiday sing-along. And then next for Baldwin Middle School, they had Hats for Hope. The BMS Student Council sponsored their participation in Hats for Hope in December. Hats for Hope is a fundraising campaign to benefit the Tommy Fund for Childhood Cancer. On one Tuesday in December, all students and staff were invited to wear their favorite hat to school and to consider making a donation of $1 or more to the Tommy Fund. Baldwin was able to raise nearly $1,400 that day. And many thanks to the Student Council for raising awareness and for promoting the event. Secondly, belonging in Baldwin. The Community Builders Club has been planning their next Community Day to take place on Wednesday, January 17th. The student and the club work with their advisors to plan and implement a school assembly that focuses on the aspect of belonging. This month, their focus will be courage. The work that starts during the assembly is carried over to classrooms and integrated into their daily work. Many thanks to Jen Orgavon and Dana Coulter for taking the lead on this important work as the club facilitators. And lastly, about performance music, all three of their performance music groups will have both in-school and evening concerts late January or early February. They will start with their orchestra program on January 23rd, then their chorus program on January 30th, and finally their band program on February 6th. They are pleased that Baldwin provides all of their students a performance music experience in grades 5 and 6, and they're looking forward to the concerts.
And then at the high school, one of the big things a lot of people have been talking about is the musical. So the musical cast lists are out and rehearsals have begun. So so Parade is the
You're in the
Is-
musical?
is the
My
lead.
daughter's the lead.
Is-
Amazing.
is-
Wow.
So that's exciting. Winter sports are still going, and then the end of the quarter is beginning to come to a close. So people are starting to think about midterms. And I think the Guilford Library is going to have a day where there's a therapy dog. 1 or 2 days? Where there's going to be a therapy dog there, so students can come.
Great
They want the
idea.
dog.
Library will have one day where there's a therapy dog and 2 days where students can study late in the library from 8 to 10 for extra time on
So-
the midterm.
That's great.
Oh, that's terrific.
And so they're going to
And
help us
pizza.
out a little bit.
Oh, pizza. Don't forget
Don't
pizza.
forget the pizza.
Legally Blonde.
And then right before break, we had the winter pep rally for the student staff basketball game, so people got to watch their teachers and peers playing the game, which
That
was
was
fun.
The break was certainly a treat for everyone. There have been mixed emotions, of course, about coming back to school, but we're all looking forward to charging ahead socially and academically. So,
Good stuff.
What's the musical?
Legally Blonde.
Oh, awesome.
I've got an Elle Woods in the house.
Oh, wow. Who
great.
won the basketball game?
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the teachers were ahead at first, but and then it was close for a little while. There was a comeback for the students. It was tight. It was a tight game.
Excellent. Any questions for our student reps?
You guys have midterms, right, in a few weeks. Will your seniors have to, you guys, yeah.
Not
Yeah.
finals,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I have one more thing.
Oh, sure, please.
So this upcoming February 1st at 7 p.m. at the high school, there's going to be a multicultural festival which will be held or hosted by the Garcia Perez's. And this event will have a Latin group, a salsa dance group, an Africa group, and there's going to be a lot of so much more. And everyone is welcome and encouraged to attend, and this will be a great time to connect with one another through different cultures, and yeah.
And where is that?
When is it?
It's gonna
February
be
1st.
Yeah,
Okay.
February 1st at the high school, probably in the Commons.
That's great.
Well, thank you all very much. You're welcome to stay, but also we recognize how busy you are, so if you need to go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, we are up to the superintendent's report and a presentation on the 24-25 budget.
And if you would just indulge me for a moment, this is the one time of year that I take advantage of the podium.
All righty.
So, thank you very much. This is the one presentation of the school year where I do take the opportunity to present to the board and to the community from the podium. I will ask for your forgiveness tonight. I have a cough drop in my mouth. I'm going to try to do this and not cough on the microphone and to make it through the presentation. This is a significant responsibility every year for the superintendent to bring a draft of the upcoming year's budget to you, the Board of Education. After we make this delivery to you tonight, this receive item, we then look forward to working with you over the next several weeks to finalize this budget into your Board of Education budget. We begin this work in mid-September. I want to specifically thank the principals, the area directors, and specifically the members of the business office, Jason Bowden and Linda Trudeau and Ashley McConey, for all of their work and effort that has gone into this budget presentation. You received your budget books, both electronically and physically. The numbers that I share with you tonight will track with the numbers in that budget book, though they may be presented in a different way as I work to present the narrative behind this year's budget presentation. As with every year, the budget begins with the center of our work. We begin with the portrait of the graduate. We know that after 13 years in the Guilford Public Schools, it is our expectation that every student steps away competent in these 6 areas, that they are adaptable learners, responsible collaborators, effective communicators, critical thinkers, empathetic people, and contributing members of a global society. None of these attributes speak to specific discipline areas. We expect our students to be well-versed readers, mathematicians, artists, scientists, athletes, but these characteristics cut across any of those disciplines, and it is the work of 13 years in our school system as these students step off to continue their learning and their careers. Beyond that, we have some assumptions that go into a budget build. Every dollar that we request from this community goes through these assumptions. First and foremost, it is our responsibility to provide a safe and a healthy school environment, physically, socially, emotionally. That is the primary concern, and every decision that we make and every request that we make serves that concern. Second only to safety is our actual reason for being. Our mission, the reason that we exist as a school system, is as a learning organization. And so every dollar that goes into this budget likewise carries a focus on instruction and learning. Specifically this year, we continue to roll out this portrait of a graduate. Principals and coaches continue to work with their teaching, student, and parent communities to fully understand that portrait and to align all of the work that is happening at that building level with that portrait. We hold high academic standards for each and every child in the school system. We are a high-achieving school system. We're proud of the achievements that our students put up. And this year specifically, we're working with the science of reading, moving to a more overtly structured approach to reading and literacy, specifically building on phonics skills as mandated by the state of Connecticut. And we're continuing to focus on mathematics instruction throughout the school system. You'll hear more about both of those later. And we believe firmly that our students don't come to academic successes without knowing that they are socially, emotionally safe and supported in the school systems. And so both social and academic belonging underpin everything else that we do. And as I said, these aren't just instructional goals or social goals. This is the focus of the budget. We don't ask for resources without knowing that they will support these priorities. Beyond that, and I've said this every year that I've stood and presented a budget to this community, we do not expect to ever bring forward a status quo budget. Every year we expect that the budget will facilitate our work to be better next year than we are this year. And so every year the budget is intended to leverage opportunities for our students, to extend existing opportunities, to create new opportunities so that every year we're stretching our students further and providing more to this community. And finally, we don't ask for a dollar without looking at what's already in the budget. We come to this budget with the expectation that requests are made thoughtfully and creatively. And if we can repurpose a position or if we can stretch an existing program, we will do that first before asking for anything new. And then it's all built on student enrollment. This year, the student projections are built using the SLAM demographic study that we commissioned just last year, we received last year. You will notice that while we are still projecting decreases district-wide, a decrease of 24, you'll notice that we're beginning for the first time to show increases at the elementary level. Now, most years I have stood here and I have suggested that we're looking at a decrease of 50 or 60 or 70 students, and I don't expect that we're going to realize this. I'm not completely convinced that we're going to realize growth of 36 students across the elementary schools next year. We have used the low recommendation, the low projection from the SLAM study, but we asked for the study. This is what the experts are telling us, and it made sense for us to use that number in the budget moving forward. This is the enrollment upon which these requests are built. We'll continue to monitor that closely, and this board knows that if necessary, we will make adjustments across the summer or even into next school year if the enrollment doesn't pan out. We have left positions unfilled in years where we have over-projected, and we have added unbudgeted classroom positions in past years, including this year, when enrollment exceeded our expectations. So this is a projection, it's a starting point, it is not a commitment. And then with all of that, here's the budget request for this year. This year, the administration is coming forward with a presentation that we're moving forward to the Board of Education, suggesting that our needs for the 24-25 school year would be met with an educational budget of $72,418,151. This is an increase over this current fiscal year of $3,751,979, or a percentage increase of 5.46%. That is not out of alignment with the requests that we've made for the last 2 years, and it's not out of alignment with the requests that you will see around the state of Connecticut this year. I read this weekend about one of the districts against whom we benchmark ourselves, and they're requesting a 6% budget increase as we move forward. I'm going to spend much of the rest of tonight's presentation explaining exactly why we believe this is the right number and why that increase is necessary this year. And that starts with looking at our history. It is important to note that for 6 out of the last 8 years, we have come in with final budget increases that have been below 2%, if not significantly below 2%. The last 2 years, that changed, and I will remind this board and this community that in 22-23 and 23-24, those increases were driven specifically by increases to the medical insurance that we contract with through our district. In 22-23, we saw an increase of $1.5 million in that line item, and in 23-24, we saw a second increase of $800,000 in that line item, suggesting that we are not presenting status quo budgets. We didn't suggest that we should stop moving forward because of those increases. But when those increases were folded into other initiatives, you saw those significant increases. This year is very much in alignment with those without that sort of medical increase. But we're making up for 2 years of modest requests around instructional improvement. And again, I'll talk about that more as we move forward. I mentioned under budget assumptions that we start by looking at the existing budget and finding ways to meet the needs or meet the requests with what we already have provided in our budget. This year, there are several such efficiencies that are being recognized in this budget. Special education spending continues to be a volatile area of spending, and it continues to be an increasing area of spending. I will point out special education costs and needs several times tonight. But we've spent 10 years working to build out local services that we provide in the Guilford Public Schools, and I'll show you visually how we have been able to stabilize special education spending to a large extent. The opening of our local Transition Academy, which is a program that services our students 18 to 22 years of age, has been a significant improvement in programming and a way to avoid outside costs at the same time. I'll talk more about special education as we move forward. Medical spending, for the first time in 3 years, is a bright spot. Medical spending this year is projected to be down, not up by $1.5 million, not up by $800,000, but in fact down by $800,000. After the last 2 years of increases, we worked with our medical consultants, our benefit consultants, to put together a bid. That bid went out on the street, and we believe that we received better numbers this year, for making sure that we were looking for the most competitive numbers that were out there. So medical spending this year actually returns to levels that we saw in 2015 and 16 before those 2 consecutive years of increase. When this board met with the leadership team, specifically when you met with the principals, you heard a request to have a full-time math coach scheduled at every building. Currently, we have math supports half-time in each of our elementary schools and at Baldwin and Adams. This budget allows us to provide a full-time literacy coach and a full-time math coach in each building, K through 8, not K through 12, but K through 8. And we achieve that through restructuring positions by looking at district-wide specialist positions, one of the technology integration specialists position and a STEM specialist position, refocusing those positions at the building level with daily contact with teachers at each of the buildings. We meet that request without asking to increase the number of coaches in the budget this year. So as I go through later in detail the number of requests and the investments we're making, I don't want to lose sight of the importance of the coaching positions and the coaching support that we will offer next year. Even though we achieved it without asking to add new positions. And finally, even though you will see increases, if you go to your budget books and if you look at the spending by location at each of the 7 buildings, you'll see increases at each of the 7 buildings, particularly driven in areas like textbooks, library books, periodicals, supplies, and materials. Even though those shows increases this year, our teachers and our principals continue to do yeoman's work keeping those expenses down. I think I left the word frugal in there. We frugally manage the resources that we have at each building. We ask parents to participate by providing materials, and they deserve credit for helping to keep those increases down. To say a little more about each of these, I'm particularly fond of this visual. This shows special education spending back to school year 2010-2011. The blue line, or what here looks like the black line, is the budget for special education. And you will see that it looks like a roller coaster, and it particularly looked like a roller coaster 6 or 7 years ago, where it was up one year and down the next. It is volatile, it's changeable, it is difficult to predict. The red line, what here looks like, I guess it's an ochre line, is our actual spending. And you will see that for a long time, we could predict the trends, but we were always under budgeting. We were budgeting in the right direction every year, but we were never budgeting enough dollars to actually meet the special education costs. You'll note that that trend began to change in school year 1920, when we began to close the gap, and in fact, we ran 4 years of actual spending from school year 18-19 to school year 21-22, where special education spending was significantly flat. You saw an increase in the last school year, and you see that there's a projected increase coming for this school year. We continue to see increasing needs in special education services. I will detail that out more for you as we move forward. As we continue to build more in-district programming, we need to then bring in specialized support. Transportation is increasing both for regular education and specifically for special education students. And this year, with a changing mandate at the state level, where we are now responsible for all of our students either through graduation or through the entire school year in which they turn 22 years old, that is a significant change for us, and you'll see that increase is represented in the request at the end of this chart, where that tail begins to tick up again. I also mentioned medical spending, and I'd like to show that to you here. So again, to note, in 21-22, we were spending $8.5 million on medical benefits for our employees. Remember, we employ approximately 800 employees, part-time and full-time, here in the Guilford Public Schools. That jumped in 1 year from $8.5 to $10 million, and then the following year back up to up again to $10.8 million. This year, I believe, because of putting out a bid and being a little more aggressive with our providers, as well as some more positive experience locally, we're seeing a $10 million budget request for this year. Takes us back to roughly where we were in 15-16. Those dollars are being folded into the instructional investments that we deferred for the last 2 years in making those medical payments. And again, I'll show you more of that as we continue through this presentation. And that starts here. Every year, there are what we identify as non-discretionary increases. This year, like everybody else, the school district has been impacted by inflation. This year, the school system has been impacted by teacher shortages, substitute shortages. We've seen costs increase in a number of areas. Every year, as we pull together the draft, I look to the budget to see what's driving the number this year. And this year, I pulled out 6 items. The largest increase this year, as it should be, is in salaries. We have been wrestling with a teacher shortage for several years now, and for a long time, Guilford appeared to be insulated from that teacher shortage. We're not insulated from that teacher shortage. The last 2 years were the first time in my tenure where on the first day of school, I could not say that we had all certified positions filled. We continue to struggle for the last 3 years to find world language teachers for an elementary program that we have been unable to staff over the last 2 years. This year is the first year of a new teacher contract that sees the most significant increases in teacher salaries that we've seen in Guilford in my tenure. And that is the right thing to do, and the teachers in our district deserve those salaries. We also need to provide those salaries if we want to stay competitive. This board knows that we've seen veteran teachers leave to go to other communities and other districts. Sometimes that happens because there's opportunities that are closer to home that cut the commute down. Sometimes that happens because other districts are outpaying us or even offering signing bonuses. If we intend to remain competitive and hire the best teachers in the state into our school system, then we will see salary increases. This also includes some of the driving forces of the substitute shortage. When we don't have the availability to bring in a substitute or to hire to cover a class for a long-term substitute, we're paying additional dollars to have our existing certified staff cover the classes for a day or a lunch period or for 6 or 8 weeks while a colleague is out and we can't find substitutes. That all is adding to the salary increase that we see here. 2 years ago, when I put up this slide, salaries were not the top cost driver. Medical expenses were. Last year, they were the top one, but barely. The salary increase just edged out the medical increase. This year, the medical increases don't appear on that slide at all, and that, again, is as it should be, and that is good news for us. If we're to invest money in the Guilford Public Schools, I'm happy to see it invested in our teaching staff. Salaries include not just teaching staff, but non-certified. These are all the salaries in the district, custodial, clerical, food service, everybody that we employ in the district, except for any new positions. And that's an important note. I will later show you another slide about discretionary increases, what I call the investments. I want to be very clear, there is no double counting happening. Any position that I show on that investment slide is not counted in this increase. This increase is simply to move forward every position that is in the budget today to next year, as well as providing support for coverage around substitutes in other areas. The second driving factor in this budget is the increased cost around transportation. That includes regular transportation. We are in a contract with our bus provider, and that contract has increases built in annually, and that includes part of that contractual increase. It additionally includes increased costs for special education transportation. We do not have an existing contract. Special education needs change year to year. The board knows that we bid those contracts out annually, and those costs are increasing, not just in Guilford, but around the state. And I'll also note it's the smallest of the 3 portions, but it's an important portion. There's also some increased dollars in this line for athletic transportation. We know that we have struggled in some areas around athletic transportation these last years. Much of that is due to driver shortages, so additional money may not solve the problem, but additional money may help us to solve the problem and open up some other opportunities for transportation that this year were not available. The tuition increase is tuition for special education students whose needs we do not meet in the local Guilford Public Schools. At times, we contract with outside providers to meet the needs of our individual students, as well as some smaller dollar amounts for things like magnet schools. These costs are increasing. The providers are increasing the costs, and even as we grow our in-district programs, we see growing needs for students to avail themselves of these outside services. Specifically, this number is impacted significantly this year by that changing state statute. Prior to this year, we were responsible to service our students to their 22nd birthday, at which point DMS would pick up those costs. Moving forward with next year's budget, we will now need to provide those services through the end of the school year in which a student turns 22, and that represents a significant portion of that increased cost. Contracted services covers a variety of things, but in large part, these are often specialized services that we are bringing into our school system. So it might be outside school psychologists, behavioral specialists that we are bringing in to work with our staff and our students who we do keep in district, and those costs are increasing this year. Software costs, to some degree, this is simply inflation that you're seeing, but a significant portion of this is upgrades to our security software. We've talked with the board about how we are expanding our security. We are increasing the number of cameras. We're looking at how we use cameras, and we're bringing in software supports to make our schools safer. And then while it's not a significantly large number compared to the other ones, cost of electricity is increasing this year, and that is a significant cost. There are a number of other cost increases that fall below the $50,000 mark, but these 6 items alone represent an increase of $2.6 million. If this budget asked for nothing else other than meeting these cost increases, you'd be seeing an increase of 3.7%. So I've already mentioned that the entire budget is going up by $3.7 million. 2.6 of it sits in these 6 bullets. And we would, again, define these as non-discretionary increases. This is the cost of doing business, 3.7%. If we want to extend our services, if we want to go beyond status quo, then we need to begin looking at investing in the programming, and that's where we move to this slide. Now, there's a lot more than 6 bullets here. There's a lot that we intend to put into, and I want to ask you to not gasp until I get to the bottom line, because while there's a lot more items here, it's a much smaller bottom line. And again, I want to bring you back to the history of increases that I showed. In that band of 6 years that we highlighted in blue, where our increases were 2% or lower, and 2 years where we were really thoughtful and really modest about instructional investments because we needed to offset, not exacerbate, the medical increases that we needed to absorb. This year, we are saying unapologetically that there are instructional investments that need to be made in the system. Now, the first 4 teaching positions, and these are broken up. The first chunk are certified teaching positions. The second chunk are non-certified positions. And then the last 2 bullets represent ancillary, more miscellaneous spends that are neither one would represent FTE or full-time teaching or full-time employment investments. The first 4 teaching positions that you see on this slide are already existing in the budget today, or in the district today. These 4 teaching positions are working in the district today, and it's why you see such a specific number associated with each of those positions. To continue those positions moving forward, it's our responsibility to move them into the budget. Should we choose not to move these into the budget, that is literally going to be a reduction in service. That would be a position that we eliminate. This year, you know that we built last year's budget projecting 10 kindergarten sections, but we opened with 13. We added a kindergarten section at Lakes, and to continue those class sizes into grade 1, we need to now build that teaching position into the budget. We additionally added a special education position at Baldwin Middle School after the year opened because we recognized there were greater needs there. And again, if we don't continue that position moving forward, we would remove that position and other special education teachers would pick up the service of those students, increasing their caseloads. The next 2 positions we've been talking about for 3 years now. The district-wide social worker and school psychologist position were paid for initially with ESSER funds. We have gone beyond the ESSER limit. We are now pulling those 2 positions forward. We have applied for 2 rounds of statewide mental health grants, and we did not land either of those grants to pay for these positions. At this point, there is no further grant funding, and if we want to continue these 2 positions, we again need to build these into the budget moving forward. Additionally, beyond what's already existing in the teaching ranks, the district knows that this year we are revising the health and PE curricula. There will be more health expectations. We are suggesting that we would extend a current health position of 0.8 at the high school to a full 1.0 position that would allow us to meet the demands of the new curricula once it is completed. You heard Principal Mullen speak about extending the elective opportunities at Adams Middle School. 2 years ago, I believe, we added an additional technology position at Adams Middle School. Dr. Mullen has plans to extend the music offerings to provide more opportunity and more variety in the music offerings, and those will be done with existing music staff at Adams. And she is excited to bring forward a proposal to begin offering drama, opportunities to begin dramatic study at Adams before coming to the high school. We know how well, I just said East Lyme. It has been 14 years. We know what the Guilford Public Schools drama department at the high school looks like. This would be an opportunity to begin offering drama at Adams and to begin offering students at Adams the ability to choose electives in music, in drama, or in tech in ways that they don't currently have the opportunity to choose. We continue to see a demand for more school psychologist support, specifically at Lakes Elementary School, and we continue to see a need to increase special education staffing with another half-time position at Adams Middle School. I mentioned early on that those needs in special education are continuing to drive our choices. That represents 7.7 new teaching positions that we're talking about in this budget request. But this budget is more about non-certified positions than it is about certified positions, because in the next chunk of bullets, we talk about 13 non-certified positions that we're asking for. I also know that when you met with the principals this year and last year, you heard the principals talk about the importance of insulating teacher time and administrator time. With this teacher shortage, we have teachers covering for each other. That means they walk away from important planning and collaborative professional time to cover a colleague's classes. We have principals, particularly at the elementary level, who are covering classes when we can't find other positions to cover those periods. So while we're covering the emergent needs of the moment, we're failing to do the important work of learning and planning that continues to move us forward. These non-certified positions invest in those areas. This year, we have 6 safety monitor positions that have been provided to us by the town through ARPA dollars. These are additional adults in the building. At the high school, we've had hall monitor positions for a number of years. This year, we restructured the positions to be safety monitors, not hallway monitors. These are not armed positions. There are no armed employees of Guilford Public Schools, but they are in the buildings, walking the hallways, checking the perimeter, and being visible and present at student arrival, student dismissal, lunches, and recesses. That is a significant relief to a principal who knows that there's an absence among the lunch monitors today or among the recess monitors today. I love the fact that I have arrived at 2 of our elementary schools this year, and before getting out of my car was finishing a phone call and parked next to a recess yard. And within 5 minutes of finishing my phone call, one of our safety monitors was tapping on my window to very politely introduce themselves and ask me who I was and what business I had on school property. They were embarrassed when they realized I was the superintendent, but in each case, they were doing exactly what we want them to do in exactly the way that we want them to do it. And principals are recognizing those positions as an important layer to our safety protocols, but also as an additional support to them. We have 8 in the district Total, 2 exist in the budget. We're asking to move these 6 from the town. Their ARPA funding expires this year. If we want to continue those positions, we need to build them into this budget moving forward. We're additionally asking for an increase of 5 paraprofessionals, all working in special education and working to support special ed teachers and students. We're asking for an increase of 1 heating and ventilation maintainer. Just in your previous meeting tonight, you looked at the number of bills that we pay to air conditioning and heating companies to come out and help keep us running. We believe that we will offset the cost of this position, of this salary, with savings that we'll recoup by not making after hours and weekend service calls to HVAC companies. As the Transition Academy continues to grow and as the number of students increase in that area, we're asking for an increase of half a custodian. This would be a night shift, and this would be a custodian that takes care of the Transition Academy spaces as well as central office spaces. With the move that is pending to 595, while we go from 3 discrete locations, we are increasing square footage, and so we'll be looking for an increase in the custodian to help in both of those areas. And then this should be labeled existing. We also have a health aide that was also being paid for through ARPA funds that we believe we need to continue moving forward. This budget also includes a significant investment into athletics. I mentioned that some of that was in transportation. I mentioned that on an earlier slide. But here we are finally meeting our commitment to provide all of our facilities to all of our varsity athletes. Until this year, parents of swimmers and hockey players offset the costs of pool and ice time. With this commitment this year, we will be able to say that we're paying for all of the ice and all of the pool time, which means that we will be able to say that we are providing the facilities for all of our high school athletes because we have those facilities here or because we pay in full for the rental of those facilities. It also includes an increase to coaching positions. We will be bringing back cheerleading team, which has been absent from our roster for several years. This is for a head coach and cheer for 2 seasons, as well as increased assistant principals, assistant coaches rather, in tennis, football, and crew. Everything on this list, while it represents some 20 FTEs of certified and non-certified positions, totals up to about $1.1 million. 1.5% increase. So if we chose not to do any of what is on this list, not only would we be moving backwards by not funding currently existing positions, but we'd only be reducing our increase ask by 1.5%. Again, the last slide only had 6 bullets, but they totaled over $3 million. This slide has a lot of bullets, but it totals $1.1 million, or 1.5% of the increase that we're asking for in this budget request. When you look at where those full-time equivalents or those positions fall this year, I again want to note we're not asking for any administrative increases. There are no increases in the administrative ranks. There are increases in the teacher ranks, and I want to note, while the last slide showed 7.7 increases, this budget also suggests the reduction of 2 existing positions. We will talk about this more at an upcoming meeting. I know that we've talked about it previously and there have been questions about it, but we've been unable to fill the world language positions at the elementary level. Last year we could only fill 1 of 2 positions, and this year we were unable to fill either of those 2 positions. Dr. Goss has spent a lot of time talking with the elementary principals, with our world language department. We've looked at options like going online and offering Duolingo or doing it with non-certified positions. At this point, we are conceding that if we cannot do this well, we are better served reducing those positions, focusing on the specials at the elementary level that we can staff and that we do well, like art, which we increased just a few years ago, music and media, and physical education. There are 6 increases in the paraclerical area. There is 1.5 increases in the custodial and maintenance area, and there is an increase of 6 in a new column this year. We added the safety monitor column. So again, while we're asking for an increase of 5.7 certified positions, This budget represents an increase of 13.5 non-certified positions. Those positions are important to insulate teacher time, not just direct instructional time, but planning and learning time as well. And while we're not asking for an increase in administrative time, those non-certified positions help to insulate the administrative time to allow the existing administrators to be with teachers, with parents, and with students where they need to be, rather than covering duty positions. I also have showed this slide in the past, and I want to highlight this. This budget does show a decrease of 24 students. Now, that's a modest projected decrease, but we have been asked, why are we increasing the budget and why are we adding positions when we are decreasing enrollment? If you're down 24 positions, why isn't this a net decrease of 1 teaching position? Well, that's because the needs of students are changing and the way that we are approaching the needs of students are changing. Over the last 12 years, we have reduced classroom positions in this district. We have reduced positions in elementary classroom teachers. They're just now beginning to tick up again. We've reduced elementary world language. We were at 4 teachers 3 years ago. We're down to 2 now, and this budget suggests reducing those 2 as well. We've reduced middle school physical education, music, math positions, and we reduced 6 English language arts teachers at Adams just a few years ago. These budgets have been significantly reducing in classroom areas because we're following the enrollment. But at the same time, when I talked about those budget assumptions about taking opportunities to reduce as opportunities to invest in other places, we haven't just taken those as dollar savings. We've rolled those FTEs into other areas, like full-day kindergarten, expanding elementary art, growing the number of district-wide school psychologists and social workers, as well as special education teachers and instructional coaches. Those dollars aren't just being cut. They're being invested in other areas that support the way that we need to be meeting students' needs currently. And to show that a little more specifically, from 2017 to this budget request, we've increased the number of school psychologists by 3, the number of school social workers by a net of 2, and special education teachers by 8 over that time. We know that the needs are growing, we know that the needs are increasing, and we're investing in those needs. That's important, and we need to keep doing that if we want to keep growing and improving as a school system. Which leads me to the justification. Why are we asking for a 5.4% budget increase? Again, it goes back to the history. For 6 years, we kept budget increases below the cost of living increase. We worked really hard to really frugally manage every dollar and continue offering that high quality product. I'll show you the return on investment slide in just a few minutes. But year over year, those 6 years compounded and put us in a position where now, when new needs arise, there's nothing left in the budget that allows us to be creative, to reconfigure, to move. And then that has been impacted most recently by the teacher and substitute shortage. When we are now struggling to hire teachers who are coming and expecting 15 or 20 years of experience, when we have world language positions at the high school that aren't covered by an outside position, so we have to ask 2 of our teachers to work 120% of our contracts, those begin to impact those costs. The non-certified increases that I've mentioned are simply necessary. Those non-certified positions are the foundation of our system. They insulate the teachers and the principals. And if we don't fill those positions, we're going to be kidding ourselves that teachers are doing the important work, the long-term work that they should be doing, because they're going to be scurrying to cover every day and just get through the end of the day. And this is really important. We made these decisions very modestly for the last 2 school years because we needed to meet the demands of the non-discretionary medical increase. By not having that pressure this year, it allows us to finally bring these requests forward, and that means justifying and defending these requests when we bring them forward. And that's what we're doing here tonight. Simply said, I know this is a 3rd year of increase after 2 significant increases of 4% and 5%, but this is simply no time to stop investing in our students. We cannot stop making the safety and security investments. Watch the news. We know we need to continue to invest in the safety and health and security of our students. We have growing special education needs, not just in Guilford, statewide, but we don't shy away from those, and we're not going to go back to under budgeting and then having to find those shortfalls elsewhere. And this budget is very responsive to a series of public hearings that this board has had over the last 2 years, where our athletic community has come out regularly, respectfully, and consistently to say that they want to see an investment not just in what happens 7:30 to 2:30 here, but what happens 7 days a week after hours as well. And this budget responds to those requests. I want to take a moment to step away from the operational budget. We will return to it, but we also will have a capital request this year that moves forward. This capital request has 4 projects listed. They're listed on this slide both by size and, I would suggest, by priority. And if the board thinks that we need to make adjustments moving forward to this budget as well as to the operational budget, I would suggest that the Guilford Lakes tennis court, while it is cracked and beginning to be beyond its useful life, would be one that we might be able to stretch another year out of. On the other hand, you heard earlier Mr. Gurnham talk about the pipe replacement, ventilation, and oil tank project that is required at Melissa Jones. We are beginning to create leaks at Melissa Jones in the heating and ventilation system. Those pipes are original to the building when it was built. They need to be replaced. If we don't do this project soon, we will pay more later with maintenance calls. And so this is a significant project that needs to be done at Melissa Jones. Additionally, Mr. Gurnham and Mr. Mitchell are putting together a request for an infrastructure, a fiber and infrastructure project, capital project around our internet capabilities. Many of the upgrades that we've engaged in the last several years, particularly the communications and security upgrade that we just engaged in this year, everything puts more weight on our infrastructure, on our Wi-Fi system. The new copiers that we bought take more bandwidth than the ones that they replaced. Everything that we do is including more weight on that system. We need to ensure that that system is robust and will not fail. And so, again, not waiting for an emergency, but being proactive, we need to do an infrastructure, and I would suggest it's the second highest priority on this list this year. And then at the elementary schools, we have worked with cell phone repeaters. If you spend any time in any of our buildings, you know that it's often difficult to get a cell signal. That is also part of a security system. Now, we don't want our students using cell phones during instructional time, but we do want teachers to be able to make calls, and we want to be able to rely on those cells should there be an emergency. This project will amplify the signal for those cell phones here at Adams and at Baldwin in similar ways to what we've done at the elementary schools. And I started with the tennis court. These 4 projects together represent a total bonded request of $2.4 million. As we've been doing for the last several years, every year we include an architectural and engineering fee in there so that we have money to design the projects and therefore have more reliable numbers when we bring them forward to you. So while this is a separate vote from the operational budget, $2.4 million is a lot less than $72 million. It is an important decision that voters will be making when they go to the polls as well. With that, we then take this budget and hand it off to you, the board. We look forward to helping you make this your budget. We know that that will start with questions for us. We've got presentations ready for you to talk in more depth about the athletic program and the changes, the enhancements that we're talking about in the athletic program, as well as explaining more the decision we've made around world language at the elementary level. We also know every year that as you go through your deliberations, you look, and I know the question that you're going to ask us when I step away from the podium, what's not in here? What didn't you put in the budget that principals or teachers or parents were looking for? So every year, I suggest that there are possible places that you might want to add to this budget. I mentioned that this budget provides for mathematics coaching K through 8. We would love to see a full-time math coach at this high school. We have one coach at this high school who services approximately 75 teachers and focuses really only on literacy and the humanities. To be able to build out to have a full-time coach here who focuses on mathematics and STEM would be an enormous opportunity. Dr. Goss pushed for this. She did not get it in this budget, but if the board wanted to listen and be swayed, this is a place that we would suggest there could be an increase. You heard this board heard parents from Cox Elementary School who suggested that kindergarten sizes were large this year and that there needs to be an additional position at Cox Elementary School for first grades moving forward. Again, I mentioned that the enrollment is always a moving target. I know that we could use another elementary teacher and find a place where that would be an appropriate placement. I also know that if the board were to add it to this budget and enrollment were to come in under, we wouldn't fill it unnecessarily, but it is a place where I know that we could add. We talked about special education tuition being one of the drivers to this budget, and it's still not as much as we would all like to see. Special education tuition is always an area where we could add more monies. It would add a contingency that would make us all be able to rest a little more comfortably. That number changes every year, and while we're confident with the number that we've put in front of you, it's always a place that we could add. Site improvements in this budget are increasing, but not to the point that we would like to see them increase. A number of years ago, we talked about maintaining site improvements as 1% of the annual budget. That would give us a target of $720,000. Site improvements are not at that level this year, so while they're going up, it's a place that we could go up more. I also know that the board may look for places to reduce this budget, and so I would make suggestions to you, and we'll be happy to speak further on any of these or any areas that you may want to ask about. But in both pension and medical spending, we put this budget together early. I am actually hopeful, we are hopeful, that before you finalize this budget, we might be able to come forward with good projections and make a suggestion to you that we could reduce pension or reduce medical even further and give you an easy place to make reductions to this budget. I'm sorry, but those are the only two that would be easy. I just talked about reasons to add tuition. When the board feels that their backs are against the wall, tuition also becomes a place that we could make reductions. We currently have a tuition line that anticipates the needs of all the students who are currently enrolled and will be enrolled with us next year with somewhat of a cushion, because we always know there are unanticipated costs. We could reduce that cushion. We can't take it away completely, but should we choose to reduce it, it would allow us to bring the overall budget down, and we are now accepting a liability. We know that if those costs occur, we will meet them. We will have to figure out how to meet them, and we'll create another year where the red line rises far above the blue line on that graph that we shared with you earlier. In past years, retirement savings has appeared at the top of this list as an item where I have suggested that every year we can anticipate 15 to 30 retirements in the system, that we have 300 teachers, we can anticipate 10% attrition every year, and often when teachers retire from the top of the salary scale, we have been able to replace them in most subject areas at a lower cost, a lower salary, therefore creating a savings. I am reticent to suggest that we take retirement savings this school year. We have seen replacement costs coming in higher than teachers. After the opening of the school year, we saw a 17-year veteran leave us, and we replaced that position with a 20-year veteran from another district. The teacher shortage is making retirement savings a risky place to make reductions. So we can certainly talk about it, but I'll be very cautious. We mentioned to you that the safety monitors are new this year. We didn't have 8 safety monitors in the past. I know that the principals appreciate them being there. I think that they have been positive additions. But should we choose not to continue those positions once the grant funding runs out, that could represent a significant reduction to this budget. This budget includes an additional grade 4 teaching position at LEAT. Currently at LEAT, there are 2 4th grades. There are 3 3rd grades behind them. As those 2 graduate out to Baldwin, there will not be 13 sections next year at LEAT, there will be 14. We will need to cover those. We could make a reduction. We could work with Mr. Seal. LEAT is the school with the smallest overall enrollment, and if necessary, if we were really making difficult decisions, you see how far we're getting down in the list here, we could make a teaching position reduction there. And I'm sure that we would find a way to minimize the impact of that reduction and stay within board recommended guidelines, if not comfortably so, at least within those guidelines. One of the requests this year is for an exciting expansion of opportunities and choices at Adams Middle School. We could defer that decision, or we could choose not to make that addition, and that would remove one teaching FTE from this position. And additionally, last year at this moment, we were also saying that we were going to pay for all the ice and water time, and we had a number of coaching positions. We could say to the athletic community that we'll take another bite this year, but we can't take the full bite, and if we reduced those investments, it would be ways to bring the budget down. The board knows that these are areas, but again, we will point you in directions that we think make sense. We will answer your questions about any of those choices that you feel we need to make going through our deliberations. And I'll just finish with this. This is the third year of a significant investment in the Guilford Public Schools that we are asking this community to make. We believe that that is a responsible ask because we believe that we are the best return on investment that anyone is going to see in this community or in school districts around the state. Guilford Public Schools simply continues to be a lighthouse school district. People are constantly reaching out to Guilford to ask us what we're doing. We have great relationships with surrounding school districts, with the local universities in the state, and our students achieve by any measure, whether it's the State Accountability Index, whether it's athletic performance, outside objective evaluations, standardized test scores, college placements particularly, or the arts or athletics communities, our students do well. And if we want to continue that and to continue to be able to say that, we have to invest upfront. We cannot scrimp now and begin to see declines. And I showed the board a graphic that looked like this last year. When you chart our performance on the State Accountability Index, which is the most holistic member, the holistic number that the state provides for every school district, versus our per student spending, you see what a return on investment Guilford Public Schools continues to be. We are the green star at the center of this chart. So when you look at who outperforms us on the State Accountability Index, there are 5 school districts in the state who significantly outperform us. Of those 5 districts, only 2 of them spend less than we spend. 3 of the districts outspend us significantly to see those results. We continue to do well. We continue to be invested in making this chart more impressive. Last year, I got to say there were only 4 dots that significantly outperformed us. This year, I have to acknowledge there are 5 because one of the districts that we benchmarked ourselves against made some significant improvement this year. We're looking to what they did, and we're having conversations about how we will continue to do the same. Those are only the DIRG A and B districts that are scored in the same way that we're scored. They're scored on the same 1,400-point scale against which we're scored. If we populated that chart with all the DIRG A and B districts or all the districts in the state, you would see that the 2 lower quadrants filled up with school districts, and the top quadrants did not get any more populated than they are currently. We're really proud of what we provide. We're very proud of the fact that the Accountability Index, which is the most holistic measure, is the measure on which we do the best, and we are happy to talk more with you about this budget tonight and over the next several weeks as you make this your budget moving forward. And I didn't cough all over the microphone.
Things that anyone wants to discuss, or rather just take some time to absorb.
Dr. Balstraci, also worth reminding everybody that in the past, the shared question list has worked really well.
Yes.
And so if board members want to start funneling questions through
Right.
Katie to
Yep.
Jason and Linda and I, we will start getting those out with
Perfect.
rolling written answers that I think has worked really, really
It's
well.
Really helpful.
Yeah. No, that's a great plan.
I'll
Go
just
ahead.
start with a very simple question.
Sure.
Besides medical, where else did we see reductions?
Not a lot of other places.
Okay.
Medical was significant. Medical's down
Yeah.
$800,000, which
Potentially more.
allowed, yes, which was really, really good news because otherwise, right, every $720,000 is a percent. So as we knew what our investments were very likely to look like. We didn't know what the cost drivers were like. And so we could have been here tonight talking about a 6.6% budget if medical came in flat. If medical had come in with another increase like we'd seen in the last 2 years, a third year of 600,000, that investment slide would have been 3 or 4, and we wouldn't have been happy or proud to present it. We're really excited about what we're able to present here tonight, which is in alignment with what we did for the last 2 years and what I think you're going to see from all around the state. Jason, Linda, is there anything else that were significant reductions?
Nothing that was significant. There's some small areas that had minor decreases, but nothing significant.
Okay.
Other questions for now? All right, so again, the Board of Ed has received our budget books. We now have the opportunity to dive in. We will, a couple of dates I want to make sure that the public is well aware of. So, first of all, the Board of Ed will have a joint meeting with the Board of Finance on January 16th. We met with them in December. We're going to meet with them again this month. We do this every year. On January 22nd, Monday, January 22nd, and on Tuesday, January 23rd, 7:30 both nights, the Board of Ed will hold a public hearing on the budget in this room. We're in the Guilford High School Media Center Library, and it is the opportunity for the public to come to the Board of Ed and offer their comments on the budget. Is the budget will be on the public school website following tonight's presentation, so that anyone in the public can look at the line by line budget.
As will these slides. The slides we use
As
tonight.
well as the slides. Terrific. The Board of Ed is going to hold a special meeting on Monday, February 5th, to approve a budget and the proposed bonding at that time. It is possible and perhaps even likely that we will also schedule, and we will post this ahead of time, a meeting between those January 22nd, 23rd public forums and the February 5th meeting if the board wants more time to discuss the budget before we are required to vote on it. We've done that a number of times in the last few years. It just gives us more time. If we add a meeting, we will post that so that the public knows that they can come. After February 5th, after the board votes on the budget on February 5th, it then goes to the Board of Finance, and there are a series of meetings there as well. So I just want to make sure the public is especially aware of that January 22nd and 23rd nights for public forum. All right? Excellent. You have one other item on your report tonight.
I do, and I actually wanted to add a third if I could.
Okay.
I also wanted to update the board and the community. You heard our student reps mention that Michelle Han has stepped down as principal at Melissa Jones School. We wish her well in her future endeavors at Learn. We have been very fortunate to bring Mr. Regan out of retirement, and he is serving as the interim principal at Jones Elementary School and will do so through the close of this school year. He'll stay and close out the school with us, which allows us to do a really thoughtful search and not be rushed in the process. So you have a tentative timeline in your packet for tonight. We anticipate advertising for this position and posting for this position before the end of this week. We will be advertising nationally, so we will be advertising in papers locally and with CAPS locally, but also through AASA and through Indeed and some other outlets where we will publish this nationally. We hope to have a recommendation to this board by the April workshop meeting or by your regular meeting in May, which will allow any candidate to give their current district significant time for a July 1 start with us, as well as to allow some overlap with Mr. Regan. In those 3 months, we will conduct a survey of the parents in the Jones community, as well as all the faculty and staff at the Jones community. We will post, and we've done this a number of times. We anticipate we'll receive somewhere between 40 and 60 applications. Mr. Bowden and I will vet those applications and will if past experience holds up, we'll see probably 50 to 60% of every applicant who puts in, that we will screen those applicants. We'll bring those applicants through at least 2 committees. One will be a broad representative committee that will include teachers and parents from the Jones community, as well as some district personnel and a board member. That group will be winnowed down to a smaller group who will come back to a follow-up committee that we like to refer to as a performance-based interview. That will include other principal colleagues as well as more district personnel. With this timeline, if this is somebody who has a current position that affords the opportunity, we should be able to conduct site visits. And so we're really pleased to have Mr. Regan in place. We're pleased with the timeline that we're able to share with you, and we look forward to having a candidate in front of you by April or May to take over the helm at Jones on starting July 1st.
Terrific.
And then, if I may, we had notified board members by email earlier today, but I wanted to take the opportunity to do this on camera as well. At your last meeting, you approved a calendar. And we wanted to note that we uncovered a clerical error on the calendar. It happens to be a happy error. It's a fortunate error. The calendar that you approved included 181 student days, but our calendar in district, our contracts only afford 180 student days. So that means the last day of school for students on the calendar that you approved will no longer be Monday, June 16th. It moves back to Friday, June 13th. So other than being Friday the 13th, everything about that change is really good. So we wanted to make you aware of the change. I don't believe that it requires any action by the board, but if you wanted to vote on the changed calendar, you could certainly do so now. I don't think it's necessary. We will get information out and a corrected calendar out to the community and on the website, but we wanted to make you aware of it as soon as we discovered it.
I'm just going to voice my opinion that I don't think it requires a board vote, but I'll look around at my colleagues and happy to hold a vote if anyone is concerned. The calendar choice, I was not able to attend our December 11th meeting, but I know that the crux of the choices between the 2 calendars was on a start date and not the end date. And I believe it was considered, at least in the discussion the prior month, that it was a little unfortunate that this calendar
Yes.
was ending on a Monday. So I think it's mostly good news.
Yeah.
It's certainly not bad news. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Graduation. again.
And I will note for the board that even should there be snow days, and should the last day for students have to move to the following Monday, we will, under the new legislation, be able to lock in graduation, and graduation will now be on a Friday based on this calendar, even if the last day of school has to move because of snow days or other cancellations.
Now,
You can't do that till next year, but you can do it after the first day of school next year.
I do this all I thought it was like, oh, we already voted on the
We voted on
graduation
this
date, but we
year's.
voted on this year's graduation.
Yes,
Too many dates.
it keeps changing.
Too many dates. Okay. So I'm getting a sense that my colleagues
No
are
need.
really
No
comfortable.
need.
Excellent. Perfect.
And that does conclude my report, and thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, so we're going to go on to board agenda. 9.1 is to receive for possible action the 2024-25 preschool tuition rates. I know there was some discussion of this in the Operations Committee meeting. There is a proposal to increase the pre-K tuition by 10%, so that would be a 10% increase in the full day and a 10% increase in the half day, which would then total $7,248 for the 24-25 year for full day, and $3,325 a year for the 24-25 tuition for half day. I also understand there was some consideration in the meeting of possibly thinking about this. I'm interested in what the board wants to do with this. Do we want to vote on this tonight?
After speaking with Mr. Scanziano a bit, I see no reason why we should wait, so
Okay.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve.
Actually, I
Second.
thought we were waiting
Yeah,
to
that was just
do
gonna
it
bring
for
up-
public input.
Okay.
Just to
Yeah,
let,
that's fair,
maybe
too.
just for a month, just
Yeah,
to let
that's fine.
families, now that they're gonna see the numbers, give them months.
No rush,
just wanna
right?
give some
There's no rush.
Is there no rush?
No, there's no reason that we have to decide tonight.
I'm fine with that as well.
Okay. All right,
Take
so
back my motion.
you're taking it.
Take that.
Totally okay. Yeah.
Robert's Rules of Orders allow you to do that, I think. I don't-
Well, there was no second.
There was
I
no
think, so it
second,
dies anyway.
so
Motion
we're,
denied.
motion denied. All right, so then, the public knows that the Board of Ed is considering a 10% increase in pre-K tuition, both for the full-day and half-day portions, and we expect to be voting on this at our February meeting. All right. Act on recommendations from the policy committee. Moira, I think you may be
Yeah.
helping us through this
So
since
Ms.
Mrs. Peck
is
can't
not
join us
available
tonight.
here tonight, so she and I are over things. And these are action items, but I'm going to call out that 9.2.1, the policy 5118, attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism, and then 9.2.2, regulation 5118, attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism. We're going to put a hold on that and do a little more work in terms of direction from the state around attendance. There's just been some questions around COVID and how parents document that and how it's excused versus unexcused with doctor's notes. And so the state is going to be providing additional guidance on that. So we felt it was prudent to hold
table
off
it, yep.
and get the correct language and hopefully encourage that to be a part of these policy regulations. So we will not act on those two items tonight. So then moving on to 9.2.3 is the policy 6310, graduation requirements, and we all have that in our packet. This is to act on, so we've talked about it in committee, we've talked about it here, and the entire board. And it's really just calling out a few, just to reiterate a few changes in terms, we have 25 credit requirements for graduation in 3 cluster areas. And the first cluster is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so STEM, 9 credits there. And then our second cluster is humanities, where students have to achieve 11 credits. And within that, one of the requirements that's being added for the students is financial literacy, a half a credit. And then cluster 3 is career and life skills, 4 credits. Just to explain that, so what now is happening is our mastery-based diploma assessment will go from 1 credit to a half credit to kind of balance that financial literacy requirement. And then there will be a requirement for students that graduate to utilize the FAFSA form. But I want to explain, so if we jump into, we'll talk about it more in the regulation, but this is applying to students who are graduating in the year 2027. So students through the year 24, 25, and 20,
Current freshmen.
Yes, the current freshman class will have these requirements. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors will maintain the current standard requirements and not have this financial literacy requirement as well. So that is the policy, pretty much in total. It's based on the Public Act 23-204, which made those changes. So we're just updating our policy to align with state statute.
And in the weeds,
Yeah.
check if we're going to be approving this tonight. Cluster 2, then the humanities becomes 11.5 credits, correct? Am I counting
Well,
that?
let's do the math. 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it would be
Okay,
11.5.
so we just
You're
need to-
right. Mm-hmm.
It's actually 12.
Yeah.
Is it,
Oh, sorry, no, 3. I'm sorry, I'm reading it.
No,
So
that's a good catch.
it's 11.5.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Okay. And you see the associated decrease under
Yep,
the
yep.
mastery-based
That
diploma
works.
assessment.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, just
But
want to make
needs
sure
change
that
to
if we're making the
11.5.
change, we make the, okay.
Thank you.
25. The math is correct.
Okay. Do you want to go through the
I'll
regulation
go-
first, or
yes,
should we
and then
vote
can-
on?
That's fine, if you want me just to.
Whichever
yeah,
way you
I'll
wanna
go
do
through
it.
the regulation really quick.
Okay.
Again, just explaining the credits and that, this does not apply, the new updated credits per financial literacy and the mastery-based diploma shift will not apply to the next 3 classes, only apply to the freshman class, which graduated in 2027. And then as well as that FAFSA requirement. That's the federal application for financial aid, and they're just hoping that by encouraging students to complete this, it just helps them kind of get over that hurdle in considering higher education, and it gets them families familiar with it. I think that the other piece that's important in the regulation is around credits. And I'll just read this language. Credits earned prior to registration at Guilford High School in middle school in courses typically taught at the high school, at the public middle school or private middle school will be approved by the Connecticut State Department of Education. And in our case, it really focuses around mathematics. There are some kids in 8th grade at Adams who are taking high school level math, so they're actually going to come into the high school with that
Correct.
credit, which is great. And that was the big difference in terms of the regulation.
Okay.
And, yeah, nothing else has really changed, and it's again based on Public Act 23-204.
All right, so, question?
Just a question on the wording, because I know we've gone over this over the last few meetings, and we have discussed it applies to students who are currently freshmen now, graduating class of 2027.
Yeah,
But in the actual graduation requirements here,
yeah,
it's actually pointing out so in the policy,
yeah,
it's pointing out, in order to graduate from Guilford High School, starting with class of 2024,
so that's wrong.
Yeah, that,
shouldn't that be class of 2027?
Yeah, let me see where we're looking
Right here, 9.2.3.
at. Yeah, I know, I saw that, so it should be 2027.
Right.
And then further on the regulation, 9.2.4, under 1.1 credits, in order to be granted a diploma from Guilford High School, starting with the class of 2023, it states.
Yeah,
that you're looking at the reg now at the top.
I'm at the reg now.
Yep, so that has to be
That would be
2027 as well.
2027.
Yes.
and while we're at it, on the first page of the regulation, at the bottom where it's in red, it says for the class of 2023.
Right.
Yep.
It should really read class of 2024, 25, and 26, correct? Because they're still maintaining.
The old,
Oh.
the current.
Oh, at the very
That's
bottom
current.
of the
Yeah.
first page of the reg,
Yeah.
right, should say
Yeah,
24.
class of
to be
20
explicit about it.
24,
yeah.
25,
26.
and 26.
Are you getting
Classes
this?
of,
If they approve these changes.
Yeah, so this
Right.
should, that's, I highlighted it before, I didn't bring it up, I apologize.
No,
Yeah.
no worries.
okay,
Well, thank you.
great, so.
Some dates that have to, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, just to summarize, on the policy, on the first page, second paragraph, updating, it to say, starting with the class of 2027, and under cluster 2 humanities, total of 11.5 credits. So is there a motion to approve?
Dr. Balstraci, if I, oh, you're
sorry.
doing the policy, I'm sorry, you're just doing the policy?
Just doing the policy,
Yep,
sorry.
thank
Is there a motion to approve the policy?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. And then in the accompanying regulation, in addition to the track changes that were already here, the very top, starting with the class of 2027, cluster 2 will be
That's what I was
11.5
gonna ask.
credits. And then at the bottom, for the classes of 2024, 2025, and 2026, what follows?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Is-
moved.
There's a motion to approve the
Second.
changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous as well. Thank you. All right. Up to reports of committee. Does the policy committee have anything else to report
No,
tonight?
Kristen didn't offer anything in terms of their next agenda, so I'd
Okay.
like to hear from them.
Operations committee, anything to add?
Anything to add? I think the two things worth pointing out is among a lot of facilities projects going on, we are just wrapping up our big security upgrades, as well as the locks here at Guilford High School. So very encouraging.
Terrific. Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee. Dr.
Nothing
Hirsch.
new until the next meeting.
All righty. Liaisons to town committees. Anyone
Okay.
have anything to report on? No. And Learn Board of Directors, no. We are up to public comments. Is there anyone in the public who would like to address the board? All right. Any closing comments from board members or administrators? I don't think so. Wonderful. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.